A cruise line could hand you the keys to your cabin, charge you nothing for the ticket, sail you across the ocean for a week, and still make a healthy profit on you. That is not an exaggeration. It comes directly from people who study this industry for a living. Once you understand why it works, you will never look at a suspiciously cheap cruise fare the same way again. A cruise ship is not just a floating hotel. In financial terms, it is one of the most sophisticated sales environments ever built. It places several thousand people in the middle of the ocean where they cannot leave, cannot comparison shop, and cannot easily say no, then sells to them continuously for 7 straight days. The ticket is not the main product. It is the entry fee. The entire floating city, with $1 billion of steel, thousands of crew members, and enough fuel to move a small town across the water, exists to deliver you to the place where the real business begins. To understand how this works, we have to look at the financial ledger of a modern cruise ship, following every dollar in and every dollar out. It starts with the cost of construction. Modern flagships are no longer built for hundreds of millions of dollars. Today, they routinely cost between $1 and $2 billion each. Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas, for instance, cost around $2 billion to build. To put that in perspective, some cruise ships cost as much as an entire skyscraper or a major sports stadium, making them some of the most expensive moving objects ever constructed. Building one takes anywhere from 2 to 4 years in a handful of specialized European shipyards, simply because very few other places have the infrastructure to build something this complex. The ship spans over 1,000 feet in length, rises 20 decks high, and carries thousands of passengers, alongside a permanent crew of 2,000 or more. It generates its own electricity, desalinates its own water, and processes its own waste, operating as an entirely self-contained city that never relies on land for power. There is also a more revealing way to look at this scale. Cruise lines do not just calculate total cost. They measure the cost per berth, which is the price of building each bed a passenger will sleep in. On the most expensive ships ever built, that figure has surpassed $300,000 per berth. In construction terms, every single bunk costs as much as a small house. When you multiply that across several thousand beds, the multi-billion-dollar price tag becomes simple arithmetic. Most cruise lines finance 70 to 80% of that construction cost. That means interest payments alone, during the years spent in the shipyard, can add $100 to $200 million to the bill before the ship carries its first paying passenger. Meeting updated environmental regulations adds another $50 to $100 million per vessel. The price tag on the brochure is only the beginning of the investment. Once the ship leaves the shipyard, the operational costs begin. A cruise ship is remarkably expensive to run every single hour, whether it is sailing at full speed or tied to a pier. The single largest operational expense is fuel. A large vessel burns tens of thousands of gallons of marine fuel every day. On megaships, annual fuel expenses can easily reach tens of millions of dollars, leaving operating margins highly exposed to spikes in global oil prices. Then comes the payroll. 2,000 or more crew members must be housed, fed, trained, and paid every single day. This reveals one of the industry's most significant cost-saving strategies. That massive payroll is substantially smaller than you would expect for a workforce of that scale. Most cruise ships are registered not in the countries where their parent companies are headquartered, but in nations like Panama, Liberia, or the Bahamas through what is known as flags of convenience. This legal practice allows cruise lines to operate outside the employment and minimum wage laws of the countries where they pick up passengers. They hire crew from lower wage economies under demanding contracts, 11-hour workdays, 7 days a week for months on end without standard days off, resulting in an effective wage of just a few dollars an hour. The luxury experience enjoyed on the upper decks relies heavily on this lower-cost workforce behind the scenes. Beyond labor and fuel, ongoing operating expenses never stop. There is the cost of feeding thousands of guests and crew 3 or more meals a day. There are port fees charged at every destination, typically calculated per passenger. There is comprehensive maritime insurance, round-the-clock maintenance to combat saltwater corrosion, and major marketing budgets along with travel agent commissions to keep every cabin booked. Every few years, the the ship must also go into dry dock. Workers pull the entire vessel out of the water for comprehensive inspections, hull repainting, and interior renovations. A single dry dock period can cost tens of millions of dollars, and during those weeks out of service, the ship generates zero revenue. When you add up fuel, crew, food, port charges, insurance, marketing, maintenance, and dry dock reserves, running a large cruise ship costs roughly $1 million a day. How does a floating city with these overheads turn a massive profit? The answer lies in how revenue breaks down versus where the profit actually comes from. On an average voyage, ticket sales make up about 60 to 70% of gross revenue. Onboard spending, which includes drinks, specialty dining, excursions, spa treatments, professional photos, Wi-Fi packages, and retail shops, accounts for the remaining 30 to 40%. Revenue, however, is not profit. When you examine the net margins, the picture completely shifts. The base ticket price barely covers the massive fixed operating costs of the ship, fuel, and crew. Industry data shows that base fares generate virtually no net profit on their own. Onboard spending, by contrast, carries gross profit margins of 70% or higher. That is where nearly all the bottom line profit is generated. The cruise line does not make its profit by selling you transportation across the ocean. It makes its money selling you cocktails, guided shore tours, premium dinners, and souvenir photos once you are already on board, relaxed, in vacation mode, and paying with a room key linked to your credit card with no competing businesses in sight. This explains why baseline fares are frequently discounted. Cruise lines will drop cabin prices to near zero on last-minute bookings rather than sail with empty space. An empty cabin produces nothing. A cheap cabin filled with a passenger who buys drinks, books excursions, and pays for Wi-Fi generates high-margin revenue every day. The fare serves as the low-cost price of admission into a captive retail environment. The onboard spending model is carefully structured. Base fares include fewer amenities than they used to, separating out specialty dining, premium coffee, bottled water, excursions, and high-speed internet. Once a passenger has committed thousands of dollars to a vacation, smaller add-ons feel inconsequential by comparison. A $100 beverage package or an $80 excursion feels manageable against the total cost of the trip. Gratuities are automatically added to the folio, and excursions are marketed heavily weeks before embarkation. In many ways, the modern cruise industry has adopted the unbundled pricing model pioneered by commercial airlines. The headline fare secures the cabin, followed by an extensive menu of upgrades, beverage tiers, premium internet, specialty restaurants, and exclusive deck access. Cruise lines have also learned that the most effective window for selling extras is before passengers even step aboard. Guests who pre-book packages online weeks in advance arrive with their budget already committed, yet industry data shows they still spend heavily once on the ship. Some major lines now secure up to half of their onboard revenue before embarkation day. Contactless technology accelerates this dynamic. Wearable smart bands and digital passes unlock cabin doors, locate travel companions, and process payments with a quick tap. When payment friction disappears and physical cash never changes hands, consumer spending rises noticeably. Studies across cruise operations indicate that frictionless, wearable payment systems can increase onboard spending by up to 25%. Yet, despite this commercial machine, the model can still offer genuine value to consumers who understand how the system works. Because base fares function as loss leaders, a disciplined traveler who books an affordable cabin, avoids expensive add-on packages, and takes full advantage of included dining and entertainment can secure a week-long vacation at a price that significantly beats comparable land-based resorts. In effect, guests who spend heavily on premium drinks, gambling, and spa treatments directly subsidize the vacation of the guest in the next cabin who sticks to the basics. For the cruise lines, when vessels operate at full capacity, the financial returns are strong, filling every cabin, often exceeding 100% double occupancy through family berths, and converting that audience into onboard buyers yields net profit margins in the high teens, comfortably outpacing many traditional hotel chains. A single modern cruise ship can generate hundreds of millions of dollars in annual revenue and tens of millions in clean profit. The economics work for both sides under the right conditions. The guest secures an affordable vacation by managing their extra spending, while the cruise line runs a highly lucrative operation by keeping berths filled and onboard venues busy. The only travelers who lose out are those who assume the initial fare covers the full experience, only to realize mid-trip that they have stepped into one of the most effective retail environments in modern travel. It brings us back to the core reality of the industry. A billion-dollar ship costs $1 million a day to operate, uses discounted tickets to fill its cabins, and generates its real profit after passengers have settled in, let their guard down, and started tapping their wristbands. The question worth asking is simple. Is a modern cruise an unbeatable travel bargain that a smart traveler can win by simply skipping the extras, or is it primarily a masterfully designed sales floor floating on the open ocean?